Hi, and welcome to the Sound Therapy Podcast, discussions all about healing the mind, the body, and soul with sound and stories. And today I'll be discussing how Dr. Binyamin began his own sound healing process, healing his own mind and soul. So, Dr. Binyamin, please share just a few words about yourself before we get into all the juicy details about sound healing.
Okay, so a few words about myself. I grew up in a suburb of New York City, and I always had a spiritual bent. And I wasn't, it seemed like I was out of place. So when I turned 17, I was always looking for spirituality in music. So I got into the Grateful Dead because that was something spiritual. And then when I turned 17, found my way out to Montana and became very close with the Blackfeet Indians out there. And they do a lot of, I don't call it singing. It's more chanting of songs that in Western culture would be more along the lines of chants.
Mm-hmm.
And those chants sort of bring you into yourself. They bring you, I don't even want to say they bring you into yourself. They confront you. They bring you face to face with yourself is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And spent a few years out in Montana, and eventually sort of changed my direction in life. But while I was there, really sort of learned about a spiritual way of life and learned how sound plays a big component of that, whether it was on the flute, the Native American flute, or the Native American drum, or the native songs, and stories. It was all about stories, a lot of stories. That stories that heal the soul. And the Blackfeet elders that I was close with were always telling stories. Always, it was you ask them a question and they responded with a story.
Amazing.
And so that really was sort of my introduction to healing and spirituality. And I think that the two were really, they were hand in hand. You couldn't have spirituality without healing. You couldn't have healing without spirituality. It was what was spirituality for? It was to heal. What was healing for? It was for spirituality. And sound was a big part of that. Eventually I got into yoga. Well, even before, I got into yoga at around the same time that I got into sound. It was really two
Connected?
it was two peas in a pod. And there's a type of yoga. So I mean, I like almost everyone in the West, and it's interesting in the West because in India it's not quite like this. But in the West, a person says they do yoga, and really they're doing hatha yoga, or some type of hatha yoga, vinyasana, some sort of spin-off, even restorative yoga, or yin yoga. They're all sort of spin-offs, or they're all hatha yoga, just different ways of doing hatha, different emphasis on hatha. But there's other types of yoga, and one of those types of yoga is called nada yoga.
Nada?
Nada, yeah.
Interesting. See, I haven't heard of that, so it just goes to show. I know vinyasa, hatha, all these ones, but nada yoga. So anyone listening, maybe check, learn a little bit about it, because this is some great information. So what is the difference with the nada yoga?
So nada, it means vibration. The word nada in Sanskrit, in Hindi, it's nad, right? Sanskrit adds the yeah. So nada means vibration. So sound, right? We say sound yoga, but sound isn't really, sound is what sort of happens after the vibration. Right? It's our brain processes the vibration and makes sense out of that vibration. And that sense is sound.
Amazing. Okay. So you started doing the yoga, and leaning more into understanding about sound healing. And did that start with the yoga, like learning this concept of vibration and nada, and it just evolved?
Well, it did. It did. So there were two things happening sort of simultaneously in my life at that time. There was I was dealing with my son's my son is paranoid schizophrenic. Since he was a child, he was diagnosed early childhood schizophrenia. And at that time, I was doing anything I could to try to help him alleviate some of the symptoms of the schizophrenia. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of self-care. Just trying, because of the stress of having a son with early onset schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, I was doing a lot of self-care. So a lot of the self-care I was doing was yoga, specifically a hatha yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong, just moving the energy, making sure that the energy inside myself and around myself, because we have an aura, right? We have auras, wasn't stagnant. Because stagnant energy leads to nervousness, anxiety, depression. And I was very prone to all of those things, dealing with everything that my son was going through. And also just, I mean, it wasn't just his schizophrenia, it was also people around him, doctors and nurses and teachers.
It's heavy. And I think, you know, when we go into these circumstances of life, which maybe someone listening, if they've got circumstances outside of their control, it creates this vibrational heavy energy, right? So we absorb that, so then it connects to us. So you learn how to, which I love, the movement to clear the energy, I guess, so to speak, to help you, especially knowing if you absorb this energy and it becomes heavy, right?
Yeah, exactly. We absorb the energy and we bring it more into us, but then we also bring it to people around us. We bring it to our spouses and our other, children.
We throw that everywhere.
Yeah, and then our spouses, they go to work and they, it's really, it becomes a pandemic. They infect the people in their environments who go and infect their spouses.
Bad
and
vibes pandemic.
Yeah, it's a bad vibes pandemic, totally. So that's but the way to really end that pandemic is working on ourselves, just our own self-care. And so a lot of the doctors and the nurses and the teachers, they would say things like, well, if only you were better parents, if only, you were a better father, if only your wife was a better mother.
Wow, that's heavy.
It was really heavy. And there's a wonderful yoga channel, yoga with Melissa. And it's the host is Melissa West, Dr. Melissa West. She's a wonderful human being, based out of Vancouver. And I would just put up my yoga mat every evening, turn on Yoga with Melissa. Amazing. She has a very, very loving, calming, nurturing voice. Get on the mat, and it was safe. Like when I turned on Yoga with Melissa, like, everything was outside. It was safe. So yoga was my own self-care. Yeah. But then I got into sound, trying to help my son. So at first I got a steel tongue drum. And I don't know if you know what a tongue drum is. A tongue drum is like this sort of circular oblong piece of metal that has sort of like tongues cut into it. And a hole in the bottom for like a side, right? And you have a mallet, and it makes a very melodic, pleasant sound. And it's all in a diatonic scale. So no matter, because I'm not a musician, I don't get languages, and that includes the language of music, notes. To me, I can't hear the difference between D minor and an F sharp. It's all
tone deaf, right? I'm also tone deaf. We say that Tone deaf.
I'm not tone deaf. I
Oh,
just
okay.
can't, I'm not tone deaf. I just can't get the different, like,
Yeah,
it's like I don't get, it's beautiful. It's sound. Like,
yeah.
why, you know,
I'm sure many
like,
people listening can relate, by the way. It's very fun.
yeah.
A lot of people can't figure it out unless you're a musician, specifically with singing and things like that. If you learn it, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So I needed instruments that I could just play,
Yeah,
that would sound nice from the get-go,
yeah.
and where I didn't need to know what notes I'm playing. I could play any note in any order in any sequence, and no
Mm-hmm.
matter what, it would be nice
Mm-hmm.
and sound beautiful to myself and to the listener. And I did this not for myself, but for my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I would play for him this tongue drum,
Mm-hmm. How old was he then?
and he was 14.
Oh, so he was quite older then. Well, relatively.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he
Okay.
just turned 18. Yeah, he just turned 18.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And I would play for him, and it didn't really do him much good. He wasn't so interested. I got him a few tuning forks. When that didn't pan out really, he wasn't so interested. I got some tuning forks, and he wasn't really interested in them. But I realized that I was helping myself. This was
Mm-hmm.
really,
Yeah, therapeutic, healing.
really therapeutic for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, I spent time in Montana with the Blackfeet Indians. So I sort of felt the need to connect
Mm-hmm.
again
Mm-hmm.
with that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I got a drum,
Mm-hmm.
a shamanic drum, a Native American drum, just very, and again, I don't have good rhythm, but it's just
The sound,
very simple. It's
sound, the
just the
vibration,
sound, it's the
sound. Yeah.
vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a Native American flute.
Mm-hmm.
And again, very easy to play. It's not like a European flute. It's very easy to play and very fun. And took me about 3 hours to really get the knack of it. And by that time, I was really hooked. It was
Yeah.
just, I was hooked on sound. I was hooked on the vibration. And then I learned about Nada yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Nada yoga works was because we're vibrational. Every cell, every molecule, every, on an atomic level,
Mm-hmm.
every atom and
100%.
neutron, whatever, they're vibrating,
Yeah.
and there's frequencies, and they're affected by frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hear one frequency, the cells in your arm are going to respond to that frequency. It might not be a visual
Mm-hmm.
note, but you're gonna be affected by the cells on an atomic and on a cellular level are in your body are going to be affected.
Yeah.
And sound penetrates inside of us. The deeper the sound, the more penetrating it is. And so we can actually, if somebody has a disease in any part of their body, frequency and sound is a very cost-effective way of treatment.
Yeah.
But the medical world, the pharmaceutical world, doesn't really want us to know about these kind of things
Of course not, because
because
they wouldn't make as much money.
yeah, and even the therapeutic world, and I'm trained as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I have a PhD in psychotherapy, and that's a whole topic for another time. But
A different show.
it's a different show. It's a different show.
Episode.
But my dissertation was about the journey
Okay.
being the main thrust of effective psychotherapy, and sound sends us on a journey.
Yeah.
It sends, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just want to ask you, so do you feel that the way that you became involved in sound healing was the catalyst of your son, or was it more for your own personal healing because you were trying to cope with the effects of seeing your son, having to cope with this schizophrenia? Just wondering where this main kind of desire came from.
Yeah, well, the main, initially it was to help my son. I wasn't initially I wasn't purchasing instruments from Amazon,
For
for
yourself.
myself.
Yeah, okay.
But once I saw that they weren't really helping him, but they were helping me, so then it
led you to this
just,
part, which we will share soon, about your special method.
Yeah. And then, I had a friend who he passed away recently, about a year ago, and he was sick for many years with brain cancer.
Mhm.
And his wife asked me if I would play for them, if I would take. At this point, I had already sort of developed or amassed sort of a small collection of instruments,
Mhm.
and his wife asked me if I would come and play for them. So I went, and I went to their house, and I played for him for about an hour.
Mhm.
And at this point, there wasn't much the two of them as a couple could do together. Like,
Yeah.
um, there's just nothing and he didn't speak much.
Mhm.
And um, they sat together on their couch
Mhm.
and just sort of meditated to the sounds. They closed their eyes and just went into the sounds for a while. And that was the first thing they actually did together
Wow.
as a couple for months and months and months, maybe over a year.
Wow.
So I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this was healing
Powerful,
and
powerful, powerful.
powerful, powerful. And then his wife told me a few days afterwards um, and he was trying all sorts of different things at that point,
Yeah.
cannabis, mushrooms, chemotherapy,
Mhm.
all sorts of different modalities,
Mhm.
treatments, Western, Eastern, alternative. And
Mhm.
she said that the sound was the only thing that really
Wow.
improved his mood and his disposition.
Wow, that's so was that kind of at the early stages of you getting into this and your kind of aha moment where you thought maybe I'm really onto something super powerful?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And then, and then sort of to take it to the next level, I went to a local prison. I just showed up one day. It's a whole, it's a
Wow.
whole story.
No,
And
I
then
love that.
uh,
I knew I
I just
liked
showed
it.
up,
Yeah. As
and
you do,
and
obviously.
yeah, I just showed up. I just showed up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have. Oh, you know what? I looked on the web for
Yeah.
like some phone numbers,
Mhm.
and there was like the only phone number I got was a regional warden.
Mhm.
So I called numerous times over, I think, a 2-week period, and no one answered and no one returned calls. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, the only way to do this is just go to the prison. I'm just going to show up one day. So I went to the guardhouse, and the guards said, hey, this is a prison. Just show up. Can't let you in. You just can't come into a prison. It doesn't work like that. But he was a really nice guy. Happened to be, and there were some of the guards at the guardhouse jerks.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I can imagine.
because they're bullies. It's sort of an attract, and it's a terrible job. I mean, a being the guardhouse guard is just it's the worst job you can have in the prison.
Yeah.
But this one specific guard is there's a few really nice guys
Mhm.
there who worked in the guardhouse, but this one guy just was good. He was just good
He was
guy
your
through and
prison
through.
guy. You're a good prison guy.
Yeah, and he said, you can't just show up here. And I said, well, look, I have no choice.
Hmm.
So he gave me his phone. He called the person to speak to,
Hmm.
and he sort of introduced us over the phone. And then he gave me the phone. He gave me his phone, and I spoke to her for a little bit. And a few weeks later, I went as a volunteer.
So your intention was to go there to use your
Sound
sound healing for the prisoners, right? You just
for
were
the
like,
prisoners to
okay.
see to see where it would go, to see if it would be
Wow.
helpful, how it would be helpful, what wouldn't be helpful, what would be helpful, and just sort of. I wasn't even trying to develop a method, which is
Yeah.
eventually what happened, but it was just
Maybe a calling, like an inner calling
it
following
was an
that.
inner calling. Yeah,
Yeah, I should go
yeah,
here without knowing exactly what I'm doing, holding belief, kind of, let's call
holding belief. It
it.
was
Okay,
holding belief.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went back, they called you back.
So they called me back, and I started going frequently to the prison. And and I'm located in Israel, and
Mhm.
it's a northern prison, and so we had Arab prisoners and Israeli prisoners, and I'm very limited in what I can say, obviously.
Mhm.
So I have to sort of at this
Mhm.
point sort of mentally edit what the
generalize. All good.
yeah.
We'll give you space to make your edits in your mind. It's all
but what really I found so beautiful was that there was a lot of healing going on, especially as I played the gong.
mm-hmm.
There was healing, inner healing between, inside of the individual prisoners, but then there was a cultural healing amongst the Israelis and the Arab prisoners.
Really interesting. Can I ask you, were they asked if they want to join this session and then they agreed and then you were in a room? How was I'm trying to visualize what happened. Was it like, hey guys, the healing man's here? Just
Yeah.
how did that, obviously they're in their cells, like what, or they're not, I don't know. How was it? Can you just visualize that? Give us some kind of context.
I think that they were sort of an open-minded bunch.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they were an open-minded bunch, and then there was beyond that, I think, a certain peer pressure when when they decided that I was cool and coming was cool.
Okay, awesome.
Then it became sort of this peer pressure.
Okay.
And yeah, and I would say that was and I took a lot of and then we discuss afterwards, we process afterwards, and I'd ask them which instruments really, resonated, no pun intended, and through that sort of hone into which instruments to start with, which to finish with, how to shape a session, how to shape the most optimal healing session.
Through the teaching, basically. And with the language barrier, because I know you don't speak Hebrew, you have Arab prisoners, you have Israeli, so I guess there's Arabic, there's Hebrew, there's English from you. Did you just manage to communicate through English with them, or was it just this,
Well, it was really there's always a translator.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Yeah, I just
because there would always be a translator, but sound. Also, what really spoke to me about it was that living in a country where I don't speak the language, there's this universal language, and that's the language of sound.
Exactly.
Sound, frequency, vibration, and through sound, frequency, vibration, I am able to communicate in a very deep way, in a profoundly deep way, with people that don't speak a word of English, and I don't speak a word of Arabic or of Hebrew.
It's a collective.
So yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a big, I think really a breakthrough in my life. Just there was this frustration, this terrible frustration that, of living in a place where I'm unable to go outside on the street and just communicate. But now I've suddenly found this method, this medium, where I'm able to actually communicate with people on the deepest level.
It's really powerful because it's not even about language barrier. Maybe there's people, perhaps like your son, or people with other conditions, that they can't express themselves. So it's a healing language, feeling, I guess, understood and being able to receive that communication on another level. Wow. So so you have something really special called H.A.R.P, the Harmonic Affect Regulation Protocol method. I would really just love if you could share what that is. And I guess it started developing from what you just shared, this amazing story with the prisoners. But what is this H.A.R.P method, and what does it mean? Explain it to the listeners.
Yeah, so H.A.R.P stands for, it's like you just said, Harmonic Affect Regulation Protocol. So affect means emotions. So through harmonics, frequencies, sound, vibration, we are able to regulate our affect. So it's a protocol, like a methodology, in which sound is able to regulate our affect, our emotions, our thoughts. And how does that work? It works because it's very similar in a way. It is a vagal nerve based therapy.
Okay.
And I think so we have a nerve, the vagus nerve, and it runs from behind our right eardrum
Okay.
up to our brains.
Mhm.
And actually, I believe, you know what, it starts
What's it called?
the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve. Okay.
It starts actually, I believe, at the corner of our right jaw,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and then goes behind our right eardrum,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes down to the rest of our bodies, to literally every major organ system in our bodies it goes through. So that would be heart, lungs,
Mm-hmm.
kidneys, intestines,
Mm-hmm.
spleen,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Connector, basically. It's a massive connector.
everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's sort of, in a way, it's a very scientific Western way of understanding the chakras.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the chakras go from root to the crown,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything in between. So we have the vagal nerve, which are also very similar to the meridians, which we have in Chinese medicine, which are energy, right? And a nerve is energy, right? It's a way of understanding energy. It's electrical impulses. So through now the vague so and now we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is in charge of rest and digest, rest and relax. And that the parasympathetic nervous system is regulated, governed by sound. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, which is governed by vision.
Okay.
And then we have the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve runs through every major organ of our bodies and balances the PNS, the parasympathetic nervous system, with the sympathetic nervous system,
Okay.
SNS.
Okay, so kind of bring harmony and balance.
Yeah, like a yin yang.
Okay.
Right. We want to be in balance. We don't want to be totally rested all the time, and
exactly.
And we don't want to be in a constant state of fight or flight. We want to have harmony. We want to have equilibrium. We want to be balanced. Not too far to the left, not too far to the right. Just, we want to have a healthy balance.
Right. Not too
just right.
Yeah.
And so working with gongs. Now the gong, now there are other systems. There are many other systems actually, which do similar things as H.A.R.P, which work on the vagus nerve and on the relaxing the PNS and stimulating to a degree the SNS, balancing the two. But what's unique about H.A.R.P is that it uses real instruments. A lot of these methods use synthesized instruments.
Okay.
And I guess for me, I'm not, and if somebody likes synthesized instruments, that's great. I like real sounds. I like real instruments. I like gongs. So something about a gong is it's a big piece of metal, and it has a story behind it. There's a metaphor behind it. It's this exquisite sound which is created by fire and hammering and cutting, and it's energy, physical energy. Somebody's arm was, somebody's arm back in the day in China was like sawing this disc,
and it holds
out of metal. It holds the energy, and then it holds the energy, and then it releases the energy. And so H.A.R.P begins with about 10 minutes of bells, of Zen bells. So these beautiful Zen bells which hang. There's a deep, middle, and high pitched bell. they go on a string. They're on a string, and I
Do this
gently.
yourself? Do you do this yourself when you're doing it? When you're recording do you have these at home, basically?
Yeah, sure,
Oh wow, so
sure.
you do this yourself basically when you're
I do it
recording.
myself.
Wow, so
Yeah, yeah.
you have a whole healing sound collection in your home,
Oh
right?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. That's amazing. Yeah. Keep going.
And so for about 10 minutes, I gently tap the bells, and they're
Mhm,
just wonderful, balanced, clean, pure sounds
mhm.
with very nice pulsations. Really, they pulsate, and the
Mhm,
pulsations really, after 10 minutes, begin entering deep inside of you,
mhm,
just penetrating every
mhm.
every cell of your being. So your cells and your molecules actually start pulsating with these
Yeah.
Zen
Wow.
bells.
I really resonate because when I've done healing baths, I feel it, my whole body is tingling. So
Yeah.
I'm sure someone who has been exposed to it, and if not, definitely you need to get onto Dr. Binyamin's website and start listening. And we'll leave all the links later. But yes, so keep on going. I totally understand what you're trying to say.
So then there's the gong. So that's 10 minutes. And then we transition into the gong.
Mm-hmm.
And the gong it's 40 minutes of gonging.
Mm-hmm.
And we begin with 10 minutes of a friction mallet, which
Mm-hmm.
is a rubber mallet, which is rubbed against, it's not hit, it's rubbed against the gong.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates haunting sounds. It creates oftentimes it could be the sound of a whale, the sounds of like humpback whales
Wow.
or dolphins talking to
Yeah,
each other.
incredible. Incredible.
And it's remarkable. And so that's 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes of gently hitting the gong. There's different ways of playing the gong. There's a masculine way, which is more, I want to say recreational. It's more for creating a soundscape.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a feminine way, which is a more healing way,
Mm-hmm.
which is not really about the soundscape. It's about the constant, gentle stream of sound issuing from the gong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And so it's a healing way. It's played in the feminine way. It's not played in the masculine way. And there's nothing wrong with the masculine or feminine way of playing the gong. Just one is, they're both healing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both magnificent soundscapes. But it's really, what is the emphasis on? Is the emphasis on the soundscape, or is the emphasis on the healing? So
Yeah, can I ask a question then? So if someone is to go ahead and choose this H.A.R.P method, is there certain, is it just say someone has depression or someone has anxiety or someone just wants to relax? Is there different, let's say, methods for each person? So you said masculine, feminine. Would you give someone something different who wants healing from depression to someone who has terminal cancer or something like that? Or is it all just always the same method?
yeah, so it's a really good question. It's a really good question. Um, it's an excellent question. I want to say it's like this. The sound itself takes you on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It takes your unconscious. Your unconscious mind becomes a partner with the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So the sound itself is sort of like, in a way, it's like a surfboard,
Mm-hmm.
which your unconscious mind can ride. But in a way, it's also like a bicycle. A surfboard, you just go with the sound, you just go with the wave. And
Mm-hmm.
so in a way, you just go with the wave. A bicycle, you actually can steer it. You go where you want. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of both.
Oh,
It's
I love
like
that. It's a great
it's
analogy.
it's a little bit of both. So I think one thing I think is that the H.A.R.P method is a great alternative. And I've written about this.
Mhm.
It's a great alternative for psychedelics.
Oh, interesting.
because similar to psychedelics, it's the same substance, whether a person has terminal cancer or depression, but where their unconscious mind, with a little bit of influence from their conscious mind, perhaps, takes them, it can be totally different places. So the H.A.R.P method really takes the person on a journey, very similar to a psychedelic.
Beautiful.
Where our unconscious mind goes with that is really
depending on us, and well, not
depending
us.
on the unconscious mind knows where it needs to go. The famous hypnotherapist, Dr. Milton H. Erickson, he used to say the unconscious mind knows what it needs to know. So the unconscious mind goes where it needs to go. We just the sound sort of allows us to get and also the vibrations, and the vibration in H.A.R.P, you're listening through headphones. So the vibration on the tympanic membrane.
Amazing. It's beautiful. And if someone wants to learn more about it, they can go to www.theharpmethod.com, right, and learn a little bit more. We've kind of run out of time. I could literally sit here, and I'm sure people listening could listen all day to your interesting stories about the vibrations, about healing through sound. I wanted to talk about some stories, but maybe we're going to have to wait till the next show. So that will keep you guys kind of waiting on that. But I really want to say that it was really, really interesting. If you found it interesting as a listener, we would really love to be able to share this to more people. If you would love to share this video, if you found it valuable, leave us a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you found us on a podcast, leave us a review, because the more people that do that, the more people get healed, right? By learning about this modality, this amazing method that Dr. Binyamin has created. Do you have anything else to say, Dr. Binyamin, before we kind of close up until the next show?
There's always more to say.
There's always more to say.
But yeah, this has been really good. I really enjoyed this. So thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And until
Nicole, you know what? Why don't you give a shout out for your own website?
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Well, I do. I also am in the space of healing, and I record meditations, different actually guided meditations. Maybe Dr. Binyamin, we can somehow collaborate at one point with the meditations. So my website is NicoleBrodie.com, and I really specialize in coaching for women, actually. So feel free to check me out whenever you like. Thank you, Dr. Binyamin. Always giving. We love you.
Great.
But yeah, so thank you so much for listening. Be sure to stay tuned till the next one. And until then, have a beautiful healing day.
And thanks so much, Nicole.
Thank you.